Hey everybody, welcome back to MetaStellar. We've got some guests here today. This is my dog Jelly and my cat Callie. And we also have people from our team here at MetaStellar because this is what we do. We get here every Friday afternoon and we tell you about the top 5 books on the Amazon Sci-Fi and Fantasy bestseller list. And these are all free books. Amazon has a bestseller list just for free books. That way you have some fun stuff to read this weekend. I'm the editor here at MetaStellar. And Emma Foster is also one of our editors, and Regina Clark and Emma Lutfi are 2 of our book reviewers. Melody Friedenthal also helped with the reviews, but she couldn't make it here today. And this is January 30th, and baby, it is cold outside. And we're all up in northern climates. Amira, who you might not have seen for a while, is in Minnesota right now, and but she's actually warm. They're actually warmer in Minnesota than where I am in Western Massachusetts because we're getting near 0 temperatures here. So, well, welcome back everybody, and let us get into the books. All right, we're going to start with book 5 and work our way over to book number 1 on today's list. And let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see it. Here you go. This is Battlestations by Daniel Gibbs, the first of 6 books in the Iron Fleet space opera series. The other books are $1 to $6 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is where you pay $12 a month and you read all the books you want, kind of like a Netflix for books, if you don't mind being part of the whole Amazon ecosystem. Now, the 6th book in the series isn't actually out yet. It will be released at the end of February, but you can pre-order it. And I read this one because I love space operas. Any book with a spaceship on the cover is a good book in my book. Anyway, so Battlestations opens 250 years in the future, and we meet Arthur, a lieutenant colonel, recently moved from engineering duty to space warfare. He's on a destroyer that's part of a contingent of vessels providing security for worlds who had voted to join the Terran coalition following the end of a war. The rotation is up in 3 weeks, and he's looking forward to going home. And so you know that's not going to work out because you can see all the laser beams there on the cover. The premise here is that the communists are at war with the capitalists. And the good guys are the capitalists, and the bad guys are the communists. And the communists have Earth and a bunch of planets that are part of the Sol League. And the capitalists have other planets, and they're part of the coalition, also known as the Terran Coalition. And so Arthur is in the Terran Coalition. And so it's the war is over, they've got treaties in place, and his ships are basically enforcing the peace. So there's really not much for them to do, and everyone's just bored and looking forward to getting some shore leave. And they're above an atmosphere of a planet that used to be under the communist rule and now joined the Terran coalition. Okay, so a freighter exits the atmosphere of the planet below them and then deviates from its flight plan, claiming equipment problems. And Arthur gets a sense that something is off, and suddenly the freighter starts accelerating straight at them, and Arthur says it must have a fusion thrust drive. And everyone is surprised, and his commanding officer issues a general alert and tells everyone to man their battle stations. So Arthur is second in command on the ship. And they fire a warning shot, but instead of veering away, the freighter accelerates even more. So they fire directly at it in order to disable its shields and engines, but its shields hold, and then the battle begins in earnest. And it's a pretty exciting battle. And they do destroy the freighter, but when it explodes, Arthur's ship is severely damaged because of the explosion, and other attackers start to close in on them. And the commanding officer is severely injured, and many systems are offline, and Arthur makes the decision to scramble the heck out of there. And so they jump out. They have some kind of wormhole kind of drive. And then in the next chapter, we jump back in time. It's the previous day. Arthur is having a meal with other officers. They chit chat about politics, deployments, blah, blah, blah. Then we jump forward to a few hours. Now we're down on the planet. We meet Natalie. She and her husband own one of the largest shipping companies on the planet. They've done well after the war has ended. They're pretty happy with being part of the capitalist system instead of the communist system. We learn some more about the politics. Then we jump forward a few more hours and we meet a guy named Yevgeny, and he's in disguise pretending to be a Terran capitalist, but he's actually a communist, and he wants to get a revenge on the Terran coalition. And they've got a secret weapon, an encrypted quantum communications network that the Terrans don't know about. Then we jump forward in time again to the time of the attack, and we meet Samantha, who's in command of a different destroyer, and she's disappointed that by the time she got her command, the war was already over. But then they're approached by an out of control civilian ship, a shuttle, claiming mechanical difficulties. They try to help, but the shuttle has a bomb aboard, and the destroyer is hurt badly in the explosion. Then we jump to yet another location, to a guy named Afonso. He's an analyst monitoring ships in the Coalition Defense Force, and they watch in real time as terrorists, using civilian ships, destroy dozens of Coalition vessels using suicide tactics. And it's not just military ships that are being attacked. As they watch, the terrorists are also going after a passenger liner. And then there's a transmission from the League of Seoul. These are the communists. They're denying responsibility for the attacks, but they also say that if the coalition isn't able to maintain order, that maybe they'll just step in and, make sure that everything's okay. Then we switch locations yet again to the White House, not to the one on Earth, because the communists destroyed that one, but an exact replica on a different planet where the president is holding a briefing and the general updates the president about what happened. They've lost more than 36 ships, plus more than 50 civilian freighters and passenger liners, and a pro-communist group is taking credit, and the general thinks that the League of Seoul is secretly backing this group. And he wants the president to respond in full force, but she can't because of treaties. She has to send smaller ships to respond to these attacks. Then we'll go back to the first guy, Arthur. His ship barely escaped from the conflict zone. The reactor is functional, but it will take a week to get all the systems ready to go again, and Arthur wants to get it sooner. Then we switch to Natalia on the planet, and then back to Arthur, and then we switch to a new ship. They've got hundreds of civilian refugees on board, and they're trying to get them to safety when the bad guys jump in. They issue a distress call, but they don't have much hope of rescue. Then we're back to Arthur. They received this distress signal. Their plan is to jump in, do what they can, then jump out, because they don't have the weapons or the shields to do much more than that, and so on. So I read a little bit further beyond this. There's a lot of different people and locations at the beginning of this book. So it's kind of hard to get attached to any one character, but so far I am enjoying the action. I am able to keep everything straight. I do like Arthur's competence, and I also like the fact that the rest of the books are in Kindle Unlimited, so the odds are very good that I will continue with this series. Okay, on to book number 4 on today's list. Here you go. A Feast of Phantoms by Kat Ross. And this is the first of 3 books in the Lingua Magica steampunk fantasy series. The other books are $4 each, and they are not in Kindle Unlimited. And Amira read this for us. And Amira, she's on mute now, but hopefully she'll stop that and tell us about the book.
Hey, so I read the first 2 chapters of this book a couple of years ago, and I loved it, and I actually continued to think about it since then. Every once in a while, I would remember it and think about it again. Um, oddly, oddly, I haven't actually come back to finish reading it, but I might, I might now. It's only like 200 something pages. And it is written in a fast-paced kind of way. It's kind of ironic, it's gritty. The genre is fantasy, steampunk, And it's a Western. As you can see, the lady on the cover, she's got a cowboy hat on. She's, holding a gun. There's a train in the background. What I wrote a couple of years ago is that I like the blurb. There's adventure and romance. The town is adorable. I love the area. The town is kind of like in between other places that are important. And so nobody ever comes by like to visit. They just like go by to visit like the more important places around it. Um, the main character, I said I love the main character, and I remember that because she, when I first, I was touched by how nice she was. The call to adventure interrupts her from a favor that she's doing for a lonely old man, and I just remember that she sounded so nice. Um, and okay, so the town is tiny. It's called Lucky Boy. Um, there's this family, a powerful family in the area that is clearly going to be part of the plot. You can tell because it's, you know, they kind of sound important and they kind of sound a little intimidating in like the first few chapters. Um, and what the sheriff's son, okay, so the call to adventure. The sheriff's son calls Deputy Cortez. The main character's name is Ruth Cortez, calls her to the train depot where they meet Sebastian. And Sebastian works for the Carnarvon family. That this is the powerful, like kind of troublesome seeming family. He is their chief of special services, and his job is to escort a prisoner along the railroad. It's going to take several days, and this prisoner is someone who can speak to ghosts. And obviously, he's going to be asking Cortez to come along with him. So it is good. I feel it's well written. Um, it's well written. It's kind of gritty. It's kind of ironic. It's snarky. It's snarky, but in a way that I like. I don't like all snarky narratives. But yeah, there you go. And I'm very likely to come back and finish reading it.
All right, thanks. Let's go on to book number 3 on today's list. And let me make that bigger so you guys can see it. All right. It looks like Zoom has changed the way they arrange images on the screen. So we'll see how well that works in the recording. Anyway, the book is by one of my all-time favorite authors, Ilona Andrews. This is This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me. And you don't actually get the full book here. You get an extended preview of the start of a new fantasy series, Maggie the Undying. And I think that the reason why it's on this Free Friday bestseller list is that Ilona Andrews is super famous. It's actually husband and wife writer team. And they're New York Times bestselling authors. And the book is billed as Game of Thrones meets Outlander. And the whole book will be released in March, and you can pre-order it for $15. And we don't know yet whether it's going to be in Kindle Unlimited or not. But yeah, Ilona Andrews is one of my all-time favorite authors. But Emma Foster grabbed this book before I could. So, Emma, what did you think of it?
Yeah, so I was thinking that it was a treat to have this on our Free Friday list, and I was really excited, especially when you hyped it up so much in the email this morning. So, of course, I had to snatch it up. And before I begin, I want to preface this by saying that I did it sucked into the story very quickly, as a matter of fact. So the book begins with Maggie. She's a young woman who is in some kind of like dark fantasy world. So there's options here that are really cool. She's standing in this kind of medieval-esque fantasy land where it's a city, but it's filled with like spooky cathedrals with spires that reach up toward the clouds. Just generally gives off a gothic vibe. However, Maggie does not belong here, and she comes from our world. Somehow she woke up naked in a gutter in this world, but luckily she happens to know where she is. Because we get some backstory at this point. It turns out that Maggie knows where she is and where she woke up because this city is straight out of her favorite fantasy series. When she was in high school, her mother gave her this thick fantasy tome that was all about like dashing villains, warrior princesses, mysterious assassins, that kind of thing. It was all to help get over a breakup And Maggie ended up devouring the series, but the author only wrote 2 books, and he never actually finished the series. He just it's disappeared off the internet. She's been waiting for like 10 years to get the sequel to the book. Maggie guesses that this is some type of portal fantasy, and she's standing there like with a blanket wrapped around her, naked in the street. She's like, I really wish that I could have landed in a role that was better than this, because now she's afraid of getting attacked, robbed, murdered, whatever, and she has no idea where to go. At one point, Maggie sees a beast that is described as a cross between like an otter and a ragdoll cat, and it appears and tries to attack her, but Maggie beats it back with a rock. Also, a strange four-winged bird then falls to the ground in the alley she's standing in, and the creature attacks it instead and walks off. But before the creature walks, he realizes that it had been following her before, and she also notices that it has a strange symbol on her chest, kind of like a half moon. But she can't really think about that right now because she needs to figure out what to do next. And that's as far as the Amazon sample gave me. I really was excited to read more. I absolutely love that portal fantasy has become more of a trend lately in fantasy. And this story, with its descriptions and the backstories put in, like the strange creatures, it immediately pulled me in. And I am really excited about this one. I think I found my next doorstopper read. I am super excited, Maria, that you have introduced me to this author duo.
Oh, hold on. So you only got like a chapter or two?
Yeah, that was all that Amazon gave me before it was like, nope, you can't read anymore. You have to actually buy the book. It wasn't
What
even like the full first chapter.
what
I
kind
was
of
sitting there like,
extended preview is that then?
the what?
It's not an extended preview.
I know. I was
Ah,
sitting there like, that's it? But I want to know what happened.
so disappointing. But
It was really
yeah,
good though.
check out her other books, or
Yeah.
their other books. They write a lot of urban fantasy. Awesome, awesome books. Anyway,
Yeah, it was
let's
really
move
good.
on.
So I highly recommend reading the sample if you haven't yet.
All right, let's go on to book number 2 on today's list. Let me make that bigger for you guys. This is Darrienia by K.J. Simmill, the first of 4 books in the Forgotten Legacies fantasy series. The other books are $4 each and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. And Regina read this for us. Regina, what did you think of this book?
Uh, it's another dark fantasy. I seem to get a lot of them on Free Friday. I pine for a Disney movie. However, let's begin. The main character, Ellie, has super skills training sadistic assassins. And as the book opens, she's helping one of these assassins, Marisa, escape from Blackwood Mansion. It was a little confusing here because it was Ellie who had shut Marisa away in the darkness of the mansion where she had, where she had to stay hidden until all things in the world reverted to how they existed before Marisa's birth, or else the future that was meant to come to pass would never happen. I'm not totally clear on the sequence there. Then, looking in a mirror, Ellie fixes her long blue hair, its color a reminder of an ancient punishment she had received, about which we have no context yet, which is not described at this point. It made people around her wonder if she was really human. She's about to be interviewed by the Lord of Blackwood, who we learn happens to be her father. He commands her to bring back the missing Marisa, saying he knows she can do it because she and Marisa are so close. Ellie leaves the room aware she actually has Blackwood somewhat in her power, or so she thinks. When Ellie is gone, Blackwood opens a secret panel on the wall and lets in a young man who will act as his unwilling spy to follow Ellie. To ensure the young man does this, informing Blackwood at every stage of the journey, Blackwood reminds him he has his master in custody who will only be released once the young man's goal is completed. In truth, Blackwood plans to have him killed when he's done. In the next chapter, we're somewhere else entirely, no relation to anything I've just described. and a young girl is fleeing in the forest from rogues and evil men. She is distraught but must keep running. This chapter is more fast-paced and the narrative is more coherent, although it, again, bears no relation to chapter 1. And then she hears a voice say, "Awaken." And she's surrounded by golden light. So I think, oh, we're going to have a transformation. No, she remembers her life 1,300 years before. Again, we don't know why. And that her father tried to kill her, the same one she just visited. But as she wanders through the city that she now sees before her, more attackers threaten her, then run away because they think she is a witch. Not one detail in that sentence makes sense to me. These opening chapters have a lot of fantasy scenes that fit the genre, possibly too many of them. The locations switch suddenly, and I'm not exactly clear on why anything is happening. It's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle with pieces definitely missing, context, sequencing, that sort of thing. However, these fantasy tropes are dramatic at times, at least as far as I read, and other readers might find it easy to work their way through the maze of events better than I did. That's that.
So is the young girl the same as Ellie from chapter 1, or is this a different young girl?
Who knows? Not I.
Okay, so
I
the
have
father.
no idea. No, I can say she has a different name, but because of that 1,300-year gap, it could be a reincarnation of Ellie. It's very unclear.
Okay, and then you said her father tried to kill her. Is it the same
1,300 years ago.
But it's a different father from the first chapter.
Same one.
Same father, so there could be sisters.
I have no idea. I'm sorry. I'm
That is very
probably
confusing.
not going to finish the book. But I think someone else might find, like I said, a jigsaw puzzle fun to unravel. So,
All right, so we are approaching book number 1 on today's list, but before we do, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see it. SFF Writer is our newest patron. Thank you, everybody. We would not be here without you because MetaStellar is a fully volunteer-run operation. We've got something like 100 volunteers on the team right now, including all of us here today. And we publish short stories every single week, and we pay top rates for them. We also publish anthologies and serializations. We're serializing our 3rd novel right now. Emma actually edited this year 4 anthology. We're working on year 5 right now. And we have merch you can get, like this mug and this mug, which says "Humans are Magic." Let me remove this background so I can show this to you. So this is by original art by Nat Couture. She does a weekly comic strip for us on MetaStellar. So check that out as well. And the other thing I wanted to say before we go is that I've got books up on Amazon. Regina has books up on Amazon, and Emma she's working on her PhD now in creative literature, but she's also a professional book coach and editor, and she does take clients. So all the contact information is in the description box below and all the links. And now let's go on to book number 1 on today's list. This is the number 1 free science fiction and fantasy bestseller on Amazon today, and it is Crimson Run by Julia Huni, the first of 4 books in the Crimson Empire space opera series. Another space opera, yay! The other books are $6 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. Also yay, because I have Kindle Unlimited and I love space operas. Melody read this for us, but since Melody is not here, Regina, can you tell us what Melody thought of this book?
sure. These are Melody's words. The story begins with an emergency. Civilians on a shuttle are told that they're in the way of discussions between the Federation and the Crimson Empire, and we meet our main character, former Lieutenant Quinn Templeton. She and her kids, her friends, and many others are on the shuttle, and they're supposed to be transported to a Federation base for the duration. But then Quinn is separated from her children and brought back, her protests ignored. She and others like her are asked to endure the situation and to maintain military discipline. The Admiral's third wife, Tiffany, young, beautiful, perhaps superficial, makes an appeal to their patriotism. I am amused that this is Melody. I am amused that the wife is described as trophony. So, quote. Quinn and a friend try to find someone in command and discover, to their amazement and horror, that the door to the control center is unlocked and the room empty. The shuttle, with all their dependents, is gone. Using her experience as an officer, Quinn figures that the space where the shuttle used to be is now filled with crates of gold. Quinn radios the shuttle. Meanwhile, one of the people who, like Quinn, was left behind, wants to institute martial law, with himself as a recently retired officer as the commander. Trophony thinks her husband's rank is also her own and claims to outrank him. An automated warning tells them the base will be purged in 12 hours, which sounds like life support will be cut off. Add in a physical conflict between the would-be dictator and Quinn's friend, and our heroes have problems on all sides, and the only spacesuits are child size. We also meet one of the women among those left behind who is a martial arts specialist, proficient in arms and combat. Problems add up. The people left behind are suspected of being agents for the enemy. Someone is messing with the equipment. Their contact on the shuttle says he can't help, and Quinn feels something is off with her friend. Another mystery, one which she has no time to investigate. All this is quite exciting. I'm interested in these characters and how they're going to creatively solve the problem of survival, retrieve their children, and figure out why they were abandoned to die. Fans of space opera and military sci-fi will enjoy this book.
All right, I have already picked up my copy, and I also plan to enjoy this book. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us here today on this very cold Friday. And thank you, Amir, for coming back to Free Friday after all these months, years, decades away. It's been forever. Glad to have you back. And Emma's back in the UK, so she hopefully you're no longer jet lagged like you were or sick.
No longer sick.
Emma has a writing advice column in MetaStellar and a video that she posts every week. And her last one was about how to write while you're sick. So check that out. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Enjoy these books. Let us know in the comments what you thought. And we'll see you all next Friday. Bye-bye.